that day when we were adjudicated, it was Stephen Schwartz, Stephen Flaherty, who was the composer for Ragtime and Seussical and a whole bunch of things. Also, Dick Scanlon, who wrote the book for Thoroughly Modern Millie.
Right.
They were the three on the day that we were adjudicated, or sort of. Yeah.
Wow. What?
Yeah. And but Stephen Schwartz, he was like so great. He took us into a room before we even presented our piece. And he sort of said, listen, here's my advice. And this was like the best advice I'd ever heard. And it's been really, really helpful. But he said, look, it isn't going to be stupid people with stupid ideas that wreck your play because they're going to be really obvious and you just will reject them. It's smart people with smart ideas that can pull the thread that destroy your show.
Wow. Welcome to CooLife Podcast, brought to you by therealthingdating.com. www.therealthingdating.com. I'm Eva John. I'm a former candidate for local government. I was a children's television entertainer, and I love this world, and I believe we should take care of each other and have a lot of fun along the way. Welcome to CooLife. Here we go. And welcome to CooLife Podcast. I'm Eva John, and today we are joined by Leslie Wade, who has just recently come through a 10-year journey, a true decade of slogging through the snow, standing up through hot days, table reads, workshops for her play, The Gifted Prince. This is a play that is inspired by Lloyd Alexander's novel, The Remarkable Journey of Prince Jet. Leslie, there's so much more that I can say about you, but right now I'm going to start with welcome.
Thank you. Well, thank you. It's like great to be here.
It's so great that you're available to be a part of Cool Life Podcast today. And it's an exciting time for you. The Gifted Prince just opened in Calgary. And this is a moment of celebration, a real, for me anyway, a pinnacle of the combination and culmination of all the work that you've done, not just as a writer, not just as a lyricist, as an actor, as an amazing creative force. And how does it feel for you that you have just crossed over that line from a material that was being workshopped to something that is now entertaining people and giving meaningful work to other artists?
It's I will say honestly, it's a bit surreal. Several times during the rehearsal process and going into previews on the show at Theatre Calgary, I definitely felt like I was having a bit of an out of body experience
Wow.
because it's interesting when you're writing a show, you spend that much time on it, draft after draft. I mean, I think just in rehearsals there were 30 drafts of the show, just going into in the 5 weeks of the rehearsal process and going into previews. And there's certainly a time at which you think to yourself, I don't remember writing this. I've been working on it for so long. I literally do not remember writing this. I remember there was a song at the top of Act Two that Daniel Green, my collaborator, and I wrote. And I remember thinking, when he sent me the draft of the song, when he sent me the demo, I said, I don't remember writing these lyrics. Are these the lyrics I sent you? And he was like, yeah, look, this is what you sent me. And I honestly don't remember writing them. Like,
You
I
wrote
just
them
don't.
and you don't recall.
It's just been such a long process. And there's just so many songs that were in the show that are out of the show and things that got moved around, things that got changed, that there does become a certain point where you just sort of think, it's all a big blur. You know what I mean? I
Right.
do know that on the first preview though, I was sitting in the house with my dramaturg, and when the lights came up at the end of the show, I just wept. I
Mm,
was just a puddle, and so was he. So yeah, it's been a long, very long journey for sure.
amazing. And, truly, those are moments that are the guideposts in our life to tell us where have we gone with our hopes and dreams, and to know that you've checked off one box and several boxes by the fulfillment of this production. Now, Leslie, for this production of The Gifted Prince, what first drew you to Lloyd Alexander's story, and what actually made you feel that this could transition to become a musical?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I did the BMI workshop in New York. It was, it's funny how when you look back on things and you think, wow, like it was all sort of lined up, but you don't actually see it until much later when you look back and you realize, oh, all those little pieces kind of came together for a reason. But at the time, you just think, I have no idea where this is going. But the BMI workshop in New York, just to give a little context, is it's a composer lyricist workshop in New York. You have to audition to get into it. It's produced some of the greatest collaborations. It produced Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty, who wrote Ragtime, and people who came out of it wrote, Avenue Q, and just like a ton of shows. And I the deadline was like, I think it was on a Monday or something like that, and it was a Friday, and I sent in my application like by FedEx because I was like, oh my god, it's just the deadline, I have to get it in. And I was teaching children at an outdoor venue, and I remember running like to the post office on lunchtime to FedEx the package. And then I got a call saying they wanted to interview me. And the interview process is so weird because you go to New York and you basically, there's a big table and all these people are sitting behind this table and you have to read your lyrics. It's like the weirdest thing ever. You don't even sing them, you just read them.
Okay.
And
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's really weird. And I came out, and my husband and I had gone to New York for this on the train. And he was waiting for me outside, and as I came out, I said to him, I think I'm going to get in. I just had this feeling. And by the time we got home, they had accepted me. And
Wow.
then it was sort of like, how am I going to do this? Like, I had no idea how I was going to do it. This is all going to lead up to your question, but I'm just going to give some pretext or context to it. So it just so happened that at the same time that happened, I just got a job with Dan Cap as the associate director slash choreographer on a show called The Toxic Avenger. And when Dan Cap was a viable theater producer, we used to say that, when you worked for them, you got the Dan Cap dollars. And so the Dan Cap dollars basically helped pay my way to New York every Monday for 3 years. So I went to New York my husband would drive me to Buffalo. I would fly to New York. I would take the class. I would fly home that night. He'd pick me up at midnight or
Mm.
12:30 at night up in the Buffalo. They'd be cleaning the floors. Like they would actually be like the scrubbing the floors. And then he would drive me home, and then I would go to work the next day. So for a huge part of the time, that was allowing me to do this. Sometimes I would even have to take the train, which would mean I would have to get the train at, I think it's like 7 o'clock in the morning from Buffalo, 8 hours to New York, take the class at night, and then fly home.
Wow.
So I did that for 3 years. And in that time period, one of the things that you're asked to do is to write a 10-minute musical with a collaborator that they put you together with. So they paired me with Dan Green, and Dan said, there's a chapter in this book that I read when I was a kid. I really like the book. Would you be interested in maybe turning this into a musical? And so I read the chapter and I was like, sure, like this sounds like it could be a lot of fun. So we did it, and it was pretty successful. As a 10-minute musical, it seemed like it was really successful. It was also probably pretty helpful at the time. By the time I got to that point in the class, I was doing Jesus Christ Superstar on Broadway with Des McAnuff. And
Wow.
so we got all of these Broadway performers to do our 10-minute musical because Bruce Dow and all these people that were in Superstar, they very kindly agreed to give their time to do it. So that certainly helped us get a sense of whether the piece could work. So in the following year, we were asked, the class is asked to develop a whole piece, a whole musical, or begin developing a musical. So that summer, Dan and I talked about, did we want to continue developing this piece or did we want to work on something else? And we read a whole bunch of children's books. We kind of seemed very interested in doing something that was family oriented. And so he read my favorite books as a kid. I read his favorite books as a kid. And at the time, I had been, doing all this stuff at the Stratford Festival and working with jazz on Broadway. And I was I was feeling very much like Shakespeare was something that I was very interested in. I was really enjoying working on As You Like It and Henry V. And I thought, wow, this story, this book, the remarkable journey of Prince Jen is really very, very Shakespearean. Has a lot of elements of Shakespeare. And so I think initially what drew me to it was this idea, like the challenge of turning something that Shakespearean, which was the hero's journey, but also had, Eastern elements to it that I wasn't that accustomed to, into a musical. I thought it lended itself to a really great challenge, and I never dreamed that it would ever maybe get produced as a full musical, but at the time I think I was really interested in where could it go. And so that was kind of the initial experience. And ironically, one of the books that I wanted to adapt was a book called The Fledgling by Jane Layton. And that story is about a little girl who flies, which ironically is a chapter in the book, The Remarkable Journey of Prince Jen. So in a way, I got what I wanted, and Dan got what he wanted.
Right.
We both got the books that we really loved as kids in the same story. So it kind of worked from there. And then we had to get the rights. From that point, I after, the classes was finished, I continued to write the story, and I'm embarrassed to admit at this point, I had no idea even how to format a musical. I was just I didn't even know what that would be. And I wrote it out, a draft of it. We had to go to the very famous Brill Building in New York to get the rights from the publishers. And I do remember being really intimidated. It was very bizarre. The office had books piled in the hallways. It was a very typical New York agent sort of feeling about it. And we asked to get the rights, and they granted them to us. And then so that was the beginning. And then when we had the rights, we were like, well, I guess we better do something with these because we don't get them forever. They're not in perpetuity. So we had a certain amount of time to develop the piece. And so that was sort of the beginning of our very long journey towards getting it done. And partially why that particular piece, because it appealed to both of us, was why it was developed.
Amazing. And all of those not so little individual steps that brought you to the point where you could actually take this a step further. There's so many people who would just be stymied and held up by the idea that they've got to get the rights, and how do you do that? And, oh, I got to pay money, and I've got to do something official. A lot of people panic and run right from that point. So sticking with it, learning the structure of a musical, good for you. It's a learning experience for everybody. Nobody comes out of the womb ready to write a full musical. And if we all do what we do with learning and delving further, and that's what you did, and you prepared yourself. Amazing. We're taking a break to talk about our sponsors and supporters. Please remember to like and subscribe to help support our channel. Also, please send your comments to info@CooLifeWorld.ca. That's info@COOLIFEworld.ca, and we will read your comments on a future show. Right now, we're taking a break to talk about our sponsors and supporters. We'll be back with Leslie Wade on Cool Life Podcast. Spiritual Warfare Prayers by John Evans, $13.99 US on Amazon. Link in the description. These are prayers for today's times, for today's pressures, for today's families. Spiritual Warfare Prayers, $13.99 US, available on Amazon. Fast delivery by Amazon. Spiritual Warfare Prayers, putting on the spiritual armaments to thrive in this world. $13.99 US.
Becoming the Small Business Billionaire by Russell T. Dalton. Available on Amazon. Link in the description. $13.95 US. This is your guide to the possibility of making your dreams of generational wealth come true through small business ownership. Change your life and the lives of those you care for. Those lonely days of lockdowns and isolation are gone for good. Go to www.therealthingdating.com. That's www.therealthingdating.com. It's time to share. Share your time, share your life, share your love. www.therealthingdating.com. Join for free. Upgrade at any time, starting at just $5.99 a month. www.therealthingdating.com. Because it's time. You're listening to the CooLife podcast. We'll be back in 3, 2, 1.
And we are back on CooLife Podcast. I'm Eva John, continuing my conversation with Leslie Wade, the writer and lyricist of the musical play, The Tale of the Gifted Prince.
I think I have this bizarre. I don't know. It's an anomaly, but I had this really weird thing in my head that sort of like kind of believes that everyone can do anything they want.
Right?
Like I sort of think if you want to learn, if you, Ava, decided that you wanted to learn to play the violin, I believe that inherently in you is the ability to play the violin.
I used to play the viola, but go on.
Yeah. And so so given that, I never feel like there's nothing I can't do. If
Right.
somebody says, "Do you think you could, do this?" I'm like, I'm not usually intimidated by the challenge of it. At some point, I'll go, "What was I thinking?" Maybe, but initially, my initial response to things is usually like, "Yeah, okay, let's see, we'll find out."
I love that way of thinking. In fact, it's something I personally believe in. I guess we've maybe rubbed off on each other a little bit, and I love that people can be inspired to know that we can have a limitless experience in life, and the only barrier to that next experience is ourselves.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's a way as a mom, a way that I've maneuvered as a mom, and with one of my known expressions to be children can do anything.
Hmm.
Until
Hmm.
a certain youngster may have become sick of hearing that. But it's but I feel it is a fact of life, and I'm glad that this is what continued to help you to move forward with achieving your goals. I'm glad to hear that. Good self-parenting, Leslie.
Yeah. I mean, I also have a very interesting theory. It's kind of a at the same time I sort of have this very interesting theory that is kind of I believe that there's a yin and a yang in the world, like a positive and negative energy. I think it's a balance. I think it sort of keeps the spoon and the dish balanced kind of thing. But I also think that the more you achieve things, the more adversity there's going to be. I mean, I sort of feel like it's kind of that theory, like if you, I think the more light you walk in, the more darkness is going to try to cover it. So at the same time, whenever I sort of embark on something, I'm always like preparing myself for like what I know is coming, which is going to be like, there's going to be adversaries, there's going to be things that are going to stand in your way, there's going to be a certain level of like thwarting of that and I think it's probably the same with parenting. Like the more the tighter you are with your child, the more that you nurture your child, the more that your child is growing and expanding in that love and everything, the more I think that you feel the challenges that come with that, like as you keep trying to balance that dish, right? And
Right.
I mean, I think I'm not a scientist. I certainly don't have a mathematical brain, but it seems to me like it kind of makes logical sense that 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 there's something to that. And I'll bet you if you did a real deep dive into people who you admire, you'll find that all of them have had a certain level of adversity based, or equal to the amount of prosperity that they have also had. Like I bet you. I'm not sure, but
And
it'd be interesting.
I don't find it difficult to believe that because, I mean, part of it is human nature. Sometimes there are people who they start to notice you and notice that you are making big moves, as they say, and then they kinda go, "Well, who does she think she is?" And they might feel it's their calling to knock you off your high horse, and that just really at a very basic level of
Hmm.
adversarial feelings that can erupt as you start to find success because sometimes you inadvertently hold up a mirror to others to say, I did this. What did you do? What did you
Hmm.
achieve at the age of 22? Nothing? Nothing?
I know.
Right?
I
And
know.
they kinda go, "Oh, wait, I didn't do anything by the time I was your
I
age."
know.
And they're like, they can either do something about that for themselves or try to diminish in their eyes,
Yeah.
what you're doing and, so that they can feel better about themselves. You know, it does happen, but
Oh yeah. I
it's
mean, I'm
human
sure.
nature.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I know that when I got out of theater school, initially I remember very much like people were starting to get parts. They were getting stuff on Broadway. They were in. I remember, there was a girl in my class, when I went to school in New York who, was in a magazine ad for Vogue or something, and I remember
Mm.
thinking, oh man, like those people, lucky them, and I remember bemoaning it to a boyfriend of mine at the time, and he gave me really good advice, which I've always remembered. But he said, just because they made it doesn't mean you won't.
Right. Right.
And it was like a light bulb went off in my head because for some reason, and I don't know why, we think that there's only a limited amount of opportunities, and that if the opportunity is not mine, it's never going to come to me. But I don't think that's true. I had to be reminded that, oh yeah, just because so and so, makes it to Broadway, or so and so gets this, doesn't mean I won't get it as well, or that my time hasn't come. Like, but we definitely have this feeling, and maybe it's might have something to do with Canada being if everyone in the States is fighting over a piece of the pie, maybe we're fighting over like a slice. And so
Right.
we tend to feel a little bit more, like maybe the opportunities are limited, but I don't know. I mean,
Well,
I
it's
think,
scale. It's about scale when it
yeah,
comes to Canada versus US. But the thing is, I mean, if we constantly only compare ourselves, yes, the US has an enormous entertainment industry, whether that's live on stage or in television or in films. The, they also have 10 times our population,
yeah,
right? So it's why Canadians, we always loved it when you got a US commercial because you get 10 times the residual payments every
yeah,
quarter, right? It's just, there's just more stations and more radio stations, more TV stations, you're going to make more money, right?
yeah,
But aside from those opportunities, you can also make your own opportunities.
yes, definitely,
So
yes.
that's it's something that, especially as a creative person, and this is the example that brings us here today, is that the gifted prince is something that is an opportunity you created, and I'm just so impressed that it's a real opportunity that has fed hundreds. Literally, you have made a bunch of starving artists and creatives have a place in this world that they can be proud of. And I think that in itself is more than enough reason for us all to feel proud of you. Or-
Oh, that's so nice to say. I mean,
but
it means a lot
it's
to
the
me.
truth.
It's funny, my husband was saying this morning, he said, just think of all of the hundreds of kids who've seen that show, and how it's just touched, just in that respect, how many of those kids have been inspired or influenced, or just had a great day because of being able to see the show. And that actually means a lot to me as well. It's one
This
of the
is
reasons we decided to do a family oriented show, because we really wanted it to be something that 95-year-olds could see and 5-year-olds could see. You know what I mean?
definitely. And this is something that is, it sort of starts with one little drop and it has turned into an ocean. And it's beautiful to witness that. Right now, we're going to take a break to talk about our sponsors and supporters. We'll be back with more theater talk, creative talk with Leslie Wade on Cool Life Podcast.
Spiritual Warfare Prayers by John Evans, $13.99 US on Amazon. Link in the description. These are prayers for today's times, for today's pressures, for today's families. Spiritual Warfare Prayers, $13.99 US, available on Amazon. Fast delivery by Amazon. Spiritual Warfare Prayers, putting on the spiritual armaments to thrive in this world. $13.99 US. Becoming the Small Business Billionaire by Russell T. Dalton, available on Amazon. Link in the description. $13.95 US. This is your guide to the possibility of making your dreams of generational wealth come true through small business ownership. Change your life and the lives of those you care for. Those lonely days of lockdowns and isolation are gone for good. Go to www.therealthingdating.com. That's www.therealthingdating.com. It's time to share. Share your time, share your life, share your love. www.therealthingdating.com. Join for free. Upgrade at any time, starting at just $5.99 a month. www.therealthingdating.com. Because it's time. This is CooLife Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to CooLife on your streaming service and on YouTube as Hellenique Today. That's HELENIQUE Today. Because that helps us to bring more cool stuff to your ears. You're listening to the CooLife Podcast. We'll be right back.
And we are back on CooLife Podcast. I'm Eva John, continuing my conversation with Leslie Wade, the writer and lyricist for the musical play, The Tale of the Gifted Prince. Leslie, this process, as I was saying earlier, it has had a 10-year process in development. And can you tell me, in that development over 10 years, how has that story evolved from what your original story was 10 years ago to what it is today?
Oh my gosh, what a question. You know, so with Theatre Calgary recently did some kind of promotional deal with a bookstore where they were giving the book out to people who were interested or had seen the play or the musical. And I was thinking, oh boy, they're going to be pretty surprised because it's so different from the book now. I mean, initially, the very first draft was very loyal to the book, but that was probably the last time that happened.
Okay.
I will say, like, it was very interesting. At one point, Dan and I, we got into this thing called DreamWorks, ASCAP DreamWorks, which is an opportunity to present your work through ASCAP, and it's adjudicated by Stephen Schwartz. And Stephen Schwartz, that day when we were adjudicated, it was Stephen Schwartz, Stephen Flaherty, who was the composer for Ragtime and Seussical and a whole bunch of things, Once on This Island, and then also Dick Scanlon, who wrote the book for Thoroughly Modern Millie.
Right.
They were the three on the day that we were adjudicated, or sort of.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And but Stephen Schwartz, he was like so great. He was so great because he took us into a room before we even presented our piece, and he sort of said, listen, here's my advice, and this was like the best advice I'd ever heard, and it's been really, really helpful. But he said, look, it isn't going to be stupid people with stupid ideas that wreck your play, because they're going to be really obvious and you just will reject them.
Okay.
It's smart people with smart ideas that can pull the thread that destroy your show.
Wow. Really?
And he said, like, and I mean even me. Like he said, even any advice I give you, take it with a grain of salt. If you don't feel in your heart that it's a good piece of advice, don't follow it. And that was really important for me to hear. It's really been really important for me to hear. But when we did our presentation, one of the things he did say, which I did think was a really good idea, was that we had involved every character. And he said, first of all, I know the source material. I used to read the book to my son when he was a baby, and he said, but I don't know that you need all these characters. And in fact, it was true because there were two comedy characters. There was a guy named Mafu and there was a guy named Moshe. And what I realized is the two could be one. And by doing that, I made the one a lot funnier than when they were two, because the two of them were competing for comedy. And I suddenly realized I didn't need to, like, they didn't need to fight for that. I could just make that one person. And that was a breakthrough for me. From that point on, I just started thinking about the show in a different light. It like opened the box for me, and I started to think outside of it. And I also realized that the story did not have enough female voices in it. It just didn't. It was really, there was only one female voice, and it wasn't enough. And I felt like part of the problem with the kingdom, because it's a kingdom that's in crisis. It starts out with a kingdom in crisis, but I felt like in a ancient mythological Chinese kingdom that would be sort of based on a yin and yang, we had an overabundance of one and an underabundance of another. And that might be one of the reasons why the kingdom was in crisis. And so I thought, interesting. And the first, there's a shaman in the book who changes all these disguises. And the very first shaman's name was Master Wu. Well, Wu in Chinese means female shaman. And so I
Oh,
was like, oh, why don't I make the shaman a female who has to put on male disguises in order to be taken seriously? And from that point on, things started to evolve. So, it's been a process. I will say, to answer your question, it's changed like a lot. I probably wouldn't recognize it in the book, very much of it in the book anyway at this point. But I will say, so much of the work on a show, it's not necessarily something we do in Canada, but in the States, they really provide you with dramaturgs. And the Summer Led Foundation, which decided to take on the project, they they brought on Ken Trinilia for me as a dramaturg, and I didn't really know what a dramaturg did or what a dramaturg was, and my initial response to that would have been probably like, why do I need a dramaturg? Like, aren't I perfect? Like, I don't get it.
and yes, you are.
But no,
And
no. But then I met Ken, and he had great things to say. He was really helpful. And he also has like an incredible resume. He's worked on, he was the dramaturg on Hadestown. He was the dramaturg on Newsies. He was the dramaturg on Aladdin. He was the dramaturg on Peter and the Starcatcher. He just has like an enormous amount of creds. And but he came on board, and he has been an incredible ally. And he's so helped me by asking all the right questions at the right time to get me, to get to a place of clarity in the script, like, because it's really difficult when you're writing it, you can't step away. And so you just continually, are like engrossed in this script by yourself in your room. And to get that outside eye on it, somebody who gives you some feedback, who asks you these questions, it's totally invaluable. I mean, I owe him so much. He's an amazing, amazing dramaturg. Incredible. I can't imagine writing without one now, although I do also feel like having had him for 10 years, or probably more like maybe 7 or something on the show, I now should have a master's degree in dramaturgy because I've learned so much from him, like
right.
so much. It's like amazing.
Well, the tools of the trade, right? And
Mm.
I mean, they are very well and handsomely compensated. I'm glad that he was a part of your process. And you're right. I think there was a time, in many decades in the past when the role of the dramaturg was more prevalent in Canada. I don't know what happened, if it's budget concerns or just certain elite theaters that would have this attached. I don't know, but you can be that change, Leslie.
Well, the thing too is like, I mean, in Calgary, I also had, like, I had actually two dramaturgs in Calgary. Eliza came on as well as Ken, and so I was sort of getting a two-pronged attack about that. But I will say that sometimes people will present you with dramaturgs, and it's really important that it's someone you trust. Like I really trust Ken, and I know that relationship is based on that. So it's very easy for me to share my material with him and to disagree and to say, I don't think so. But also to know that he has my best interests at heart. Some dramaturgs, I think they just, it's possible, at least anyway, for them to be interested in their own ideas that aren't necessarily your ideas of the show, and to try and maybe force those ideas on you a bit. So, but yeah, I trusted him, so much. I will tell you a funny anecdote though. There was a time when there was a little scene in the show where the prince and Jahao, this peasant girl, escape the villain, and they're in the forest, and he comes back to where he had been, and he realizes that his guard is gone, and he says, like, and she says something to the effect of, wouldn't maybe he was captured by Nata, and he says, no, I would know if he was. And Ken kept saying to me, how would he know? He's so inexperienced. He doesn't even know how to change his own shoes. Like, how would he know that? And I'm like, oh, come on, Ken, anyone would know that. And he's like, I don't think he knows that. And I was like, come on, I'm not changing it. I changed it because at a certain point I realized, yeah, you know what? I get more bang for my buck if he absolutely does not even know that, for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
And
so
not being able to change your own shoes, not a good indicator for knowledge.
no, for someone who's trying to become a leader, because that's basically what he's being forced to decide to become a leader, but he's so privileged and so entitled, he doesn't even know. At one point he tries to save somebody in a pond, and his general says, "Do you know how to swim?" And his answer is, "Well, only one way to find out." He doesn't. He doesn't know, because he doesn't even know that he doesn't know. That's how. So.
Well, do we all know anybody whose actions are fueled by arrogance? No. Who would
No,
we know? But
no,
any
that would be impossible.
now the workshop process, that was a long process over time. The workshopping process it's important in some creative works to see development. Can you, just for those who don't know, can you just give me just a quick, in a nutshell, explanation of the process of workshop? And then if you could kindly tell us, how did you see your material develop
Mhm.
after the process of workshopping?
Um, Well, I mean, it's important. I think, we the first workshop we got was through American Music Theater Projects in Chicago. And it was the first time, other than like maybe a living room reading with a bunch of people that we knew, it was the first time that we actually got to hear the show on its feet. It wasn't performed, but it was like a podium reading of the piece with music. And that really informed us. I mean, that's the thing about workshops is, I think, more than anything, it's just an opportunity to read the material, to hear the material, to sing the material, and then to know, yeah, that works, that doesn't work, that's not successful, that is successful. And so every workshop that we did from that AMTP music workshop invariably like just gave us more opportunities to try out the material, because once you do one workshop, then I would go home and I would do a new draft, and then we'd do another workshop of that draft, and then I would learn more from that draft, and then I'd go home and do another draft. And so every time that you do a workshop, you just get more information. It's really about getting information. Like, that's what you really want. Otherwise, like I said, you're sitting in your room reading your material and thinking, oh, I find this funny, but you know what I mean? Like, it's funny to me, but is
Right.
it funny to anyone else? I like this song, but does anybody else like this song? So it really does become a valuable tool in gaining perspective. That's the main thing about it. Now, different workshops do different things. There's, like, in the States, there's something called the 24-hour reading, and that's a little bit more controlled. Like, you have only a certain amount of time to do a workshop. Then in 2020, we were supposed to do this show at Theatre Calgary in 2021, and then COVID hit. And
Right.
so we were in the January 2020, we were in New York doing a workshop at Open Jar down in 42nd Street area and Times Square. And that was big. Like, we had musicians, we had puppets, we had, like, it was a big thing. It was almost a backers audition, but not quite. But it was a big deal because we knew we were going to Theatre Calgary, but then COVID hit and everything got sidelined. So what happened after that, which was a little bit hard for me, was at that point, I think the show had 20 maybe people in it, 18 at least.
Right.
And after that, I got a call that, when the show got parked because of COVID, I got a call saying, like, if we have any chance of ever getting this show done, it's going to require, like, a show with 13 people in it.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, wow. Well, that's a big difference. Like, when you change a show from 18 to 13 and you're taking that many people out, you definitely are doing a massive rewrite of a show. Like, you're retooling the show. You have to rethink it. And, mind you, like, you have to bear in mind, I'm not getting paid to do any of this writing either. Like, I'm just writing for years with no pay. And so I was like, oh my God, like, can I do,
Of
how much
course.
more of my blood, sweat, and tears can go into this show? Because
Right.
I'm, the music's kind of written, but I'm the one, like, sitting at my desk, like, slogging over, like, the book, which the libretto, the book is really the hardest thing to write. Like, lyrics are difficult too for different reasons, but the book is very, very hard to write. And so, I mean, I was like sweating over this, and at this point, not even knowing if it'll ever even get done. Like, I have no idea. And then from that point on until this production, we actually haven't had any workshops of it. So maybe a reading, but no workshop. So heading into this rehearsal process was also like me having to workshop the show at the same time, which meant a lot of notes,
Well,
like a lot of notes.
you're taking those notes, you're taking those experiences through observing the workshop process, and you're allowing your material to grow, to evolve. But even that, I mean, you're kind of slow motion editing yourself. You're slow motion editing your material. And fortunately, no longer working in a vacuum
Mm-hmm.
where it's just how does this ping in my mind
Mm-hmm.
and not necessarily how does it actually sound when it's coming out of a living person and they're trying to show truth in your writing.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a privilege to be able to see
It's,
that.
yeah, it's a privilege. It's a real privilege. But I will say, in this particular instance, it did feel a bit for me like going from one extreme to another,
Sure.
because normally I would say after a workshop or during a workshop when we're not imminently going into a production, I have the leisure of being able to go, oh, I'll take that note, I'll take that note, I'll take that note. And then I go back home and I type away, and then I come back and I present material. But it's the timeline is not a crunch. Here it was like, this is a production, we're going into an imminent rehearsal, like we're in rehearsals, we're going into a production. So I would go home, I would be there all day, go home at night, eat dinner, write till 12:30 at night, get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, write more, because the deadline for when the show gets locked is coming up, and I have to get as many changes into the script in a very short period of time, knowing that happening. There's no time for me to just sit back and do anything. And so now I'm getting feedback from everybody. Like, I'm getting notes from two dramaturgs. I'm getting notes from the artistic director. I'm getting notes from the director. I'm getting notes from my collaborator. I'm getting notes from actors. So any given night, I could go home with anywhere between like 200 and 300 notes.
Wow. That's crazy.
That is
Is
crazy.
crazy. Thank
It's
goodness you
crazy.
had a personal assistant to get you through all of that, right?
Yeah, no. And that was the other thing. Like, on top of that, in some workshops, I've had a script supervisor, which is somebody who helps me, deal with all of the rewrites, and then they send the rewrites to the stage management and they print them up and everything. But I had to do it all myself. And so I'm not good at that. Like, that is one thing, maybe I could learn how to play the violin, but I can't learn how to do, like, if it requires a certain level of organization, my brain starts to short circuit, because partly also because I'm in creative brain trying to write in creative brain, and then I have to switch creative brain into like practical brain for final draft, which is the software that I use, and suddenly I'm like, revision 53, save, do what is the process, and then you get like they, stage management or whatever want you to send every revision in a certain way. So it would be like GP for gifted prints, version, date, all the page numbers that you've changed, whether, and I'm like, oh my god, this is like, I just want to write. I don't want to do all of that part of it.
But
So
you
that's,
did it though.
I did it.
You did it,
I
right? So
did
I
it.
wouldn't say that you can't do that.
Well, yeah.
That's not you. Maybe it wasn't comfortable, or maybe it wasn't your preference, but you did it,
Yeah,
and
that's
you
true.
did have that discipline. And so I think I'm going to retract what you said about not being able to do the organizational part of it, because you did it, right? And so that means basically you can do it all. Kudos. Overused expression, kudos to you, because and I know doing something that's not comfortable, especially for creative people, we would love to just be able to do that. And it's
Hmm.
nice when you do get to a point where you do have that assistant or two in the basement of your house with,
Hmm.
the two scanners and getting everything sent down that you do an update to. And
Yeah,
when that happens, I mean, then we're going to lunch again. So that'll be very nice, right? But no, it's not
yeah,
an easy process. And it's amazing that, and I love that you're able to share what you go through, because people see opening night. They see the fact that this is turned into an actual real life production, and they go, well, good for her. And it's like, good for her. You work for 10 years, day and night on something. And with that, we are at the end of part one of my two-part conversation with Leslie Wade. Please keep an eye out for part two. Until next time, I'm Eva John for Cool Life Podcast. Bye. And that was our show. Thank you for listening to the very end. Please remember to subscribe through your streaming service to get more access to our guest interviews. Also, please subscribe on YouTube to help support our podcast. Until next time, I'm Eva John for Cool Life Podcast. Thank you for turning me on.